parliamentarian to decide what is ultimately possible in legislating this budget reconciliation package?
Well, Lawrence, you started out perfectly. There is no provision in the Constitution that says that the Senate parliamentarian has any power. And Ron Klain is a brilliant constitutional lawyer. He knows that the vice president has this decision. And in 1975, Vice President Rockefeller disregarded the advice of the Senate parliamentarian when they actually lowered the threshold on the filibuster from 67 votes to 60 votes. And Robert Dove, a Senate parliamentarian who I know you respect because you served in the Senate, has said many times that people have disregarded the parliamentarian's ruling. So we should just be honest with folks. If there are political reasons that the White House doesn't want to disregard the parliamentarian for whatever reason, then just come out and say that. But know that this is the decision that the White House has. The vice president has every power to disregard that decision.
I just want to stipulate for this conversation that Elizabeth McDonough is one of the great Senate parliamentarians, and she didn't ask to be put in this position. Adam Jentelson, how did it come to this in the Senate, that these are the kinds of hurdles that the Senate has, but the House doesn't?
Well, reconciliation is a function of the Budget Act that was passed in the 1970s and then updated in 1985 with the Byrd Rule, which is really the issue here. The Byrd Rule is what makes the reconciliation process restrictive and hard to use to pass things like the minimum wage. So it's that series of first the law in the 70s and then the update in the 80s that has brought us to where we are today. But really, you know, the main factor here is the filibuster, because if the Senate it was still the majority rule institution that it was for the first 200 years of its existence, you wouldn't be trying to force big policies like the minimum wage through reconciliation. You would simply be bringing them to the floor and having a simple up or down vote and letting it pass or fail on a majority vote basis. Reconciliation is an attempt to get around the filibuster and what it has become today. Its evolution from sort of the talking filibuster of the Jimmy Stewart, Mr. Smith goes to Washington days to the 60-vote threshold that makes it nearly impossible to pass everything. So that really is sort of the proximate cause and the need to use reconciliation.
And Congressman Khanna, there is a fascinating thing about Republicans and the minimum wage. They always support the minimum wage increase that you did last time over their opposition. They all now support $7.25 as the minimum wage. And they always condemn any number that you pick as the increase in the minimum wage as something that's going to be hugely destructive and harmful. And yet they always find themselves some years down the road defending that number that they used to oppose.
You're absolutely right, Lawrence. So they have the same two tired arguments each time. They say, well, this is going to hurt rural communities, small town communities. And here's what I never understand about their argument. Are they saying that they want Amazon or Target to pay $15 to people in my district, but people in rural America or small town communities that are working for the same big corporation should get less? That makes no sense to me. Why shouldn't you have companies for the same work pay people in communities the same amount, what they're actually adding in value? The second thing they say is, well, this is going to hurt small business in these communities. Well, there's an economic paper actually that says that in communities that have the most economic concentration, which is often small communities, increasing the minimum wage actually increases jobs because people have monopoly power there, and they're underpaying workers, and increasing the wage will add jobs. So it's not based on any economics, and that's why ultimately they end up supporting it after the fact.
And Adam, I want to not exactly defend the Byrd Rule so much as explain why it seemed like a reasonable idea at the time when Robert Byrd kind of brought it into Senate budget processes. First of all, Republicans and the parties were not obstructionists. They were not trying to block every single thing that the other party was doing. And it did seem as though the budget process needed its own rules, as did, for example, international trade legislation. It made a certain sense at the time. And I was working in the Senate when Robert Byrd was on the floor himself, personally enforcing it against both parties when they tried to put things in bills that he didn't think should be there. But now, in today's Senate, it carries a completely different effect than was intended for that completely different Senate that it was written for.
Yeah, that's right. It was written in a Senate where it didn't take 60 votes to pass everything. Most legislation passed on a majority vote in the 70s and 80s when these rules were developed. It's just really important to underscore that for your viewers, that we've come to accept the Senate as a place where it takes 60 votes to pass things, but that is a relatively recent development. So in a Senate where most things passed or failed on a majority vote, the Byrd rule and the special process for reconciliation made sense as sort of a special process for budget and budget-related issues. But in a Senate where it takes 60 votes to pass everything today, and it's nearly impossible to get 60 votes, even for something as broadly popular as President Biden's COVID relief plan, which is polling in 70–80% range, it doesn't make sense to have to force reasonable policies like raising the minimum wage to $15 through this process called reconciliation that it was never designed for. The easiest way to do this, if this gets struck out of this package, is to bring it to the floor, bring other popular policies to the floor. And if they're blocked by Republicans, which they probably will be, Senate Democrats and the White House should get serious about reforming the filibuster so we can actually get some things done.
My personal favorite TV moment of the night was Bernie Sanders literally laughing out loud at the idea of Republican votes for an increase in the minimum wage, something that is supported by 57% of the public, but of course is just a laughable thing to Senate Republicans. Congressman Khanna, Adam Jenelson, thank you both for starting us off tonight. Really appreciate it.